Hello and welcome to I Want to Fight Araki, a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure close analysis podcast. And hopefully we can still maintain positivity as we re-record this episode. I think we will. But I'm Thomas.
And I'm Emily.
And today we are covering Season 1, Episodes 22 and 23, Battle Tendency Episodes 13 and 14. So, with all that said, let's get into the summary. So, as JoJo and Wammu prepare for their chariot duel, Wammu explains the rules. The track, at the average speed of the vampire horses, will take 1 minute to complete a lap. Every lap, a new weapon will be deployed in the middle of the track for the competitors to snag, with the first weapon being revealed as a sledgehammer. Cars explains to Lisa that once the moon overhead appears from behind the clouds, the battle will begin. JoJo examines his chariot right up until the battle starts, only for it to be revealed that he was actually placing rocks under Wammu's chariot so it would stall. With JoJo taking a commanding lead, he is able to grab the sledgehammer, but Wammu reveals that he had planned for this and grabs the whole pillar the weapon was hanging from. Wammu slams the pillar into JoJo's chariot, which JoJo manages to dodge, but he is unfortunately left in a vulnerable position alone on the track. Being unable to feint left or right, and with Wammu's chariot coming right at him, JoJo uses the sledgehammer as a catapult by placing it in between the yoke of Wammu's chariot and launching himself skywards. JoJo lands on one of Wammu's horses and attempts to attack Wammu with the hammer, but is surprised when Wammu isn't there. Suddenly, Wammu's hands appear from inside the horse and grabs JoJo. JoJo evades by removing his boot and, believing Wammu to be vulnerable, jumps into the air only for the rest of Wammu's body to appear and unleash a point-blank divine sandstorm, knocking JoJo's body into his chariot. Cars pours himself a glass of wine and taunts Lisa by handing her a poison that should kill her painlessly, only for Lisa to reveal that Cars' confidence is misplaced. Upon closer examination, it is revealed that not only did JoJo take minimal damage, but Wammu's arms are hanging by their tendons, and the Pillar Man seems to have gone limp from such a break in his confidence. It is revealed that JoJo was actually able to wrap Wammu's arms in the reins of the horse and channel Hamon through them, petering out Divine Sandstorm and doing serious damage to the Pillar Man. Shocked but unwavering in his confidence in Wammu, Cars orders the next weapons to be deployed, 2 crossbows, one large, one small. On the approach to the crossbows, Wammu blinds himself, believing his setback to be overconfidence gained from watching JoJo, and reveals his horn, which allows him to sense air currents as a means of navigation. JoJo, meanwhile, grabs the large crossbow for the raw power, but once grabbed, JoJo realizes he can't pull back the string because of the power. Wammu, content with the small one, first fires to gauge the combatants' distance from each other, inadvertently killing one of JoJo's horses. While JoJo attempts to hide behind the massive torch in the center of the arena, as the fire would disrupt Wammu's wind sensory, Wammu outsmarts JoJo once again by using the curve of the arena to make a bank shot that hits JoJo right in the chest and forces him to the ground, though that finally arms JoJo's crossbow. JoJo secretly loads the crossbow and begins whining and begging for mercy, all the while weakly throwing rocks at Wammu. Wammu believes that JoJo, in doing so, dishonors the battle, until JoJo's crossbow ball goes flying through Wammu's chest. JoJo reveals that he not only stole Wammu's bank shot technique, but also that the ball contained a small amount of Hamon, dealing serious damage to Wammu. Wammu, in a last-ditch effort, fires his arms at JoJo to choke him and begins readying his ultimate technique, the atmospheric rift. Cars warns Wammu not to use the technique as it would do serious damage to himself, but Wammu chooses not to obey. It is explained that the atmospheric rift is created when Wammu absorbs enough air and compresses it to the point of it being a blade of wind. With JoJo pinned against the wall and the rift edging closer, JoJo uses a last-ditch effort to throw a makeshift Molotov cocktail, which Wammu effortlessly cuts in half. The rift once again comes for JoJo, with JoJo responding by lighting Caesar's headband on fire and tossing it at Wammu, with Wammu slicing it again. Once this happens, JoJo reveals that Wammu has lost the fight. Knowing that Wammu would cut the Molotov, JoJo realized that the pipes absorbing the air would also absorb the oil as well as Caesar's lit headband. JoJo says that he would have always won the fight because he had Caesar as his ally. With that, with the reaction in Wammu, with that, the reaction in Wammu causes an explosion that leaves Wammu only with his head. Wammu tells JoJo to finish the fight by killing him, but instead JoJo cuts his hand to release some of his blood into Wammu's wounds. When Wammu asks why, JoJo responds that Wammu honored Caesar by not destroying the bubble containing the headband and antidote, and so JoJo is doing the same by softening Wammu's wound before the Hamon takes him. Suddenly, a group of vampires attack JoJo, but Wammu launches himself from JoJo's crossbow and kills them all, saying that he will not allow any vampires to harm JoJo. In his dying moments, Wammu tells JoJo to take the antidote for the ring around his heart, otherwise the battle would have been pointless. JoJo does so, and Wammu's head finally dissolves into dust, becoming one with the wind as JoJo salutes him. Cars acknowledges that it is his turn to fight and leads Lisa and JoJo to an arena outside the Chariot Stadium. Cars offers the use of various weapons to Lisa, which she refuses. The battle begins by Cars using his light-bending powers to completely disappear from the battlefield. Lisa senses him from all around her, and as Cars approaches her from a crack inside a wall, she responds by dodging using her scarf and striking him with a Hamon kick, creating a massive slice in his head. JoJo cheers for Lisa, but suddenly Lisa is stabbed in the back by Cars, who reveals that he used a decoy to effortlessly take the stone. Suddenly JoJo is attacked by an army of vampires. JoJo's Hamon begins to weaken from exhaustion, but he is saved by a returning von Stroheim, complete with a new cybernetic body and UV weaponry jointly developed by the Nazis and Speedwagon Foundation. Von Stroheim is also joined by Speedwagon himself and Smokey Brown, there to cheer on JoJo. JoJo confronts Cars, who taunts JoJo by disturbingly grabbing at Lisa's legs. He then stabs a hole in her feet and ties a rope through it and tosses her over the side of the arena so that JoJo has to hold on to the rope while fighting Cars. As the two are about to fight, Smokey thinks to himself that JoJo doesn't even know the true identity of Lisa, that she is Joseph's mother. End of episodes.
All right, so here's the dealio, here's the sitch, here's the tea, as we say. We recorded this entire episode before.
Yes.
And then it got deleted just for fun because the universe was like, nah, fam, this ain't happening. So, but I feel like this is a good opportunity because I just realized that there was a couple of minor things that I forgot to go over in the last recording, which now does not exist. So that, and since we have all, I feel like we'll be more concise in this one. And, there's some points that I forgot that I guess I will bring up at some point. So
this may not be a beefer episode, just because we've said what we're going to say before pretty recently. So yeah, I don't know. Let's stop pussyfooting around. Let's just get right into it. So, I know you took very copious notes on this. You even color-coded them in between the failed recording and this recording.
I did.
So why don't you take the reins for this one, Emily? What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I first want to talk about my glorious note-taking process, of course. I actually divided them into sections in the last recording, and then in this one I was like, how about, I know which points now coincide with each other, so I'm going to color-code them. Like, bruh.
Emily has the brain cell for this episode.
Yeah, but it might be gone now because I had it in the last recording, but who knows? That was 2 days ago. Like, it could have disappeared. So let's just get right into this. I'm going to start the way that I started before and discuss a good old theory. Well, it's not even a theory. The presence of luck and destiny yet again with our main boy, Joseph, whom we all know and love. There's actually 2 instances, one I didn't mention in the last recording because I forgot. See, this you do something twice. It could be worse, it could be better, you never know. So our main boy over here gets lucky when he's getting the sledgehammer, and his ring that he got from Caesar snags the sledgehammer, so he does not drop it after almost dropping it. it's sort of foreshadowing how he'll end up winning in the end, in a way, because, you know, that volcano totally did not have to erupt when it did, but it just did, just for fun. And there's another instance that I didn't mention, when Joseph hits the ground after falling, when he ends up with the crossbow that's very hard to load. The impact from him falling cocks the crossbow. So that's another instance that's an instance of that happening.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
It's something that even then, after last time, I didn't entirely wrap my head around it, because destiny and luck, and the way that the concept of luck ties in with destiny, is a very, very wacky topic for anybody in any piece of media to cover, because it's one of those things where it's like, yes, philosophers, they be like, some things have been like seen to be true in some ways just because people are the way they are. But then there are other things, it's like nobody can prove that destiny is a thing. So it's just that's why it's so wacky to talk about, because you just can't prove it. But I guess it is present in the JoJo verse. So it's almost like, once I brought up this point last time, I don't want to keep just saying I brought up this point last time, but I feel like obligated to do that for some goddamn reason. I forgot what I was going to say.
Got distracted by the failure.
I got distracted by the failure. Oh, god damn it.
You're talking about destiny and luck and JoJo, how that all blends together, sort of.
I was talking about it.
Okay, well,
and you brought up something about that before too. So if you have something to say about that.
Yeah. So I mean, so obviously, like destiny, we've talked a lot about, even going all the way back to our second episode of Phantom Blood, I think, that destiny is a super big part about this series in general. I mean, the legend of the Joestars versus the forces of evil. It's a legend. It's built up, constantly throughout the generations. And so I think this is sort of, that's all Phantom Blood right there. And as we've talked about a lot, battle tendency is a subversion of what we were made to expect in Phantom Blood. So in this case, the destiny, the legendariness of Phantom Blood is sort of counter to JoJo, where, I mean, I think destiny and I think luck, you could sort of like put luck in the field of destiny, but I guess luck is like a lot less epic. Like, it's very mundane. Like, you sort of talked about in the failed recording, the significance of Joseph having the ring, and how he uses that to catch the sledgehammer. Like, that is luck. Like destiny is Joseph will defeat the Pillar Men. Luck is him using the ring to grab the sledgehammer. And I think Joseph in particular, out of all certainly more than Jonathan, is like a huge user of luck. Like, we talked a lot about how he'll use every advantage to secure victory, and luck is like definitely one of them. He doesn't go into battles like with the confidence that he'll like or he goes into battle with confidence, but like it's not like his confidence derives from his skill. It's more like his mind and whatever the universe decides to hand him to secure victory.
I feel like the tie-in between luck and destiny is going to get, I feel like we're going to end up talking about this, especially like throughout it. Like, I feel like this is going to come back, especially when we get to part 5, because it's
definitely
the thing that I was going to say before that I forgot that I said before and didn't say, is in the JoJo verse, it seems as if the universe will not allow evil to win, even if there's a lot of casualties in the process. This comes about later. It seems to me that,
I mean, it's a huge element of
yes,
Diamond is Unbreakable.
there is a tie between luck and destiny, but it's not like they're not the same thing, obviously. I feel like Joseph is probably the luckiest of the JoJos because, he had this wild destiny as well. And he was also very lucky because he ended up dying of old age when he was like very old, and then just sort of vibed through life for a bit after doing a bunch of crazy things. And when he won against the Pillar Men, it wasn't even entirely him. It was luck. It was him, but it was also luck helping him out. And then you get to parts like part 5 where it's like, yeah, it seems as if such villainous characters are just not being allowed to win. However, our boy Giorno is a lot less lucky, and several other characters are a lot less lucky because they die. So that's, I feel like we're going to end up talking about that again at some point.
Absolutely.
We're not done with her.
No, not at all. It is certainly a persistent theme throughout. So why don't we talk about Destiny a little bit as it relates to Wammu and just Wammu in general in these episodes, because this is the Wammu show, folks.
It's say the thing.
Yeah, this is the Why Wammu is Great lightning round.
Yes. This whole, most of this episode is just going to be me yelling about why Wammu is great and Thomas not yelling about why Wammu is great.
But still being vocal about
it. So what should we yell about first about Wammu?
Well,
I have my whole lightning round of things, but then we could also do intelligent things before that.
Why don't we do the intelligent things
that sounds like
after,
a good idea.
actually?
Oh,
get
after?
some context.
Okay. I'm not used to that. That's not how we did it last time. Okay. So I'll give a good old list of things, I guess. So we got my first point here. The world would be a better place if people were more like Wammu, and there are several reasons for this. So I guess to get this out of the way, because it's not really something it's not really something that you could really debate. I guess you could debate anything if you wanted to, but we know that.
Guy's not blue, Emily. What are you talking about?
Okay, so we have okay, I'm just looking at my color codes. This one's in green, and I forgot what color it was, so I was like, what color did I put it again? It's green. I feel like it's important to know that it's green. So we have our boy Wammu, who is simply the best Pillar Man. He is superior. He's like the only one that's actually likable, except for that one time that AC/DC was very, very relatable. That one time for like 2 minutes. So we got our boy Wammu. He's all about respect. He's an honorable warrior. He doesn't even care. He doesn't just respect people that are on his side. He does so. He respects people that are even, against him, as long as they are, honorable people. So my boy here is also an honorable person because he does something that few people I have seen in real life do, and also very, very, very few characters in any media I've ever seen do, which is own up to his own mistakes. So he does this several times throughout the part 2. That was very weird wording, but that's what happened. He does it several times and is always shown to grow stronger because of it. And the best example I have in that is in these episodes when our boy here gets such a shock after his arms almost fall out. Fall off. Homeboy literally just went in shock and just felt very, very sad. I wrote down a quote from our boy Cars here. The quiet, calm intensity his victories gave him has vanished. He's in shock. That's basically it. And my boy came back, and Cars explains his lovely thing that he does called the switch comeback, TM. When fear of failure strikes, a mental switch can be flipped, and in an instance of willpower, bring about a rush of spirit and adrenaline. I've done that several times in the past week. I feel that. That's a thing. That's not even just BSing it. Like, you ever just get sad and you're like, okay, I can't, I'm not allowing myself to be sad anymore. I have to finish this thing. That's like me when I work on an essay and I didn't know that it was due like tomorrow. I did that. I've done that before.
Oh, for sure. I'm pretty sure we all have.
Oh, yes. And so our boy here, after he does that, his way of getting his spirits back is by, poking out his own eyes. And the specific phrase he used was, "I foolishly relied on my eyes," which doesn't really sound like much, but when you think about it, he's calling himself foolish. He is owning up to the fact that he screwed up, and he's just, has a track record of doing that, and he became significantly more of a threat to Joseph after he did this. Not to mention someone who isn't afraid to admit their own mistakes and also learn from the people around them, even their adversaries. My boy Wammu over here fakes a fall to try to get in a kick, which is something that he'd never been shown to do in any fights previously, and is a very Joseph-like thing to do. So I get the vibe that he's probably learning some of his tricks to do the good fighting, I couldn't come up with a good way to phrase that. Then we have another point about that. We got Cars right here. Despite being sort of sworn to Cars and helping him carry out his wishes, that's not even his main goal. He literally pretty much states at one point that immortality never really mattered to him. All he wants to do is live up to his code, and he refuses to break it for anyone, even Cars. And at one point, Cars says he respects that about him, but we're gonna get into that later. It's Wammu time. We could save Cars for later. He's valid, but not nearly as valid as Wammu. Actually, never mind. Cars isn't valid.
Yeah, Cars sucks.
Yeah, Cars sucks, but Wammu's great. So my boy over here didn't care about immortality. All he wanted to do was live up to his code, and I'm going to say it again. This is the third time I've said it. That's the Frank Sinatra way, baby. My boy has no regrets. He was glad that he could witness Joseph's growth as a warrior. He admits to his mistakes. He literally just is a solid person. he's a good dude, despite having being on technically the villain's side. And that's not even the only reason. We're gonna get into that again.
Yeah.
You want me to bring up that really good scene that we both very much like?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so a lovely scene, the flashback to where Cars tells Wammu to kill a young boy because he's a Haman user, and Wammu refuses once again because he wants to live up to his code. He's like, "No, I will not murder a child for you. I have morals." And Cars seemed to be fine with it. He was like, "Okay, I'll just kill him then."
Yeah, I think there was a lot of good stuff in there, a lot to break down, and
that wasn't even all of it. That was just one thing.
That was 1%.
that was the part of it.
Okay. Why don't we break down some of the stuff in there first, and then this is the Why Wammu's Great Lightning Round Part 1 intermission.
Yeah. Actually, this is more. I said it in the previous recording that it was like a power hour, but it kind of is a power hour now.
Power 45 minutes,
yes.
For sure. Yeah, so
But that was one lightning round it's not even a power hour. It's like a series of lightning rounds inside 1 hour of various JoJo related topics.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about that. So to me, I think that is like um that flashback scene is like one of the most pivotal scenes in all of Battle Tendency, I think. I think especially that like in tandem with what Wammu says about like his immortality doesn't matter to him. That all he cares about is living up to his code and like engaging in honorable combat. And I think it, it sort of is. I don't know if it's tragic because Wammu certainly has done a lot of bad things, but at least compared to AC/DC and Cars, you definitely feel something for when Wammu dies. And it creates a really fascinating contrast to Joseph, where you know if we were to boil down Wammu to one word, as we've done with Cars and as we've done with AC/DC, it would certainly be honor. I think
Oh
for
boy,
Wammu,
I knew you were going to say honor.
and so uh, that is in like massive contrast to Joseph, who, as we've established many times, win at all costs, no matter what. Yeah, but I think sort of their relationship and how it changes as they fight. They sort of mimic aspects of one another, where as you greatly pointed out, Emily, Wammu sort of pulls a trick on Joseph where he is like falling off the chariot and then he flips into a kick to attack Joseph. And I think Joseph, it's a little bit less obvious, like the attributes that he has sort of learned from Wammu. But I would sort of argue that the honor that Joseph learns from Wammu is more in the morality department, where he, at the start of the part, Joseph was pretty selfish, even if he felt the need to intervene only when he or his loved ones were in danger. But over the course of the series, he grows obviously close with Caesar. He really comes to value Caesar as a partner in battle, even after Caesar's death, where I mean, it is sort of Joseph honoring Caesar's last wish by not using the antidote immediately, only after defeating Wammu, and that which is very similar to Wammu honoring Caesar's last wish of not destroying the blood bubble that Caesar creates to hold the antidote and the scarf, and the fact that the scarf is, or the headband rather, is what wins Joseph the battle against Wammu. Because if he didn't have the headband, it would certainly be a very different scenario. And I think sort of something we've flirted with the idea with is that throughout all of the topics that we've discussed, nature versus technology, you know, uh, Joseph's sort of sneaky, underhanded morals, that Battle Tendency is kind of about like, in order to become like a full person, like you need balance, like between nature and technology, and between having honorable morals and doing whatever it takes to win in the end. And I think that's sort of what is being epitomized with this fight between Joseph and Wammu.
This is good content. But before I say something intelligent, You need to know why I got very excited when you said honor.
Honor! I was thinking like Dante Bosco comes in.
Yes, I was thinking that Wammu is Zuko confirmed. Whenever I hear the word honor, all I think about is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Well, now we know what the thumbnail is going to be.
Oh, I already made the thumbnail. I'm not changing it. It's already good. I can't. There's too many characters on it already. Like, I can't add Zuko in there. I bet I'll be mentioning Zuko again. I can promise you that.
Fair enough.
So I have a little bit to mention, and then possibly a transition into a similar yet different topic. We have one thing specifically interesting about the way that Wammu honors people is that when he refused to kill the Hamon user, the little kid, in the flashback, he was basically, the kid was a danger to them. And yet, because he was a kid, he didn't want to kill them. And same with letting the bubble go with the antidote in it for Joseph. Once again, he could have gotten rid of that because it was a danger to him if Joseph were able to, get himself all healed up. Yet he didn't do that because honor TM. So that's just an interesting thing that I think about sometimes. Like, my boy was willing to, I guess, even put himself in more danger just to not, live up to, just to be able to live up to his code.
Right.
My boy's kind of selfless, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
He's not like Cars at all, and this is what I wanted to transition into when we discussed the dynamic between Wammu and Cars.
I just quickly, I'll say that I don't know if I agree that Wammu is like entirely selfless, but certainly he is
significantly
more selfless than Cars or AC/DC.
Oh yeah, he's just like, no one is ever entirely either one unless you're Cars. But Wammu's a good balance between those two. He's just like significantly more so than the others, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I remember before we talked a lot about oh gosh. Where is she in the notes? Where did she go? Oh yeah. How I mentioned before how it seemed as if Cars respected his moral code.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end, after he died, he pretty much called him weak just for being a good person.
Yes.
And it's just, it seemed, we were theorizing of several possible reasons for this, and I don't think we ever decided on one. That there was a couple. There was one, Cars did have, like, the way that the point that I brought up last time was that Cars did have some sort of care for them, but more as just like a business partnership and less like actual friendship. But it's interesting to think that once again, Cars and AC/DC raised Wammu and Santana from when they were babies.
And especially how, like, because like we sort of, AC/DC is sort of the outlier in terms of, it's kind of hard to define like his character with
chaotic bastard.
One word. I think we've sort of settled on like sadistic or something along those lines.
Chaotic bastard.
Yeah, or bastard. But he
just chaotic neutral.
It's fascinating that Wammu is not like Cars or AC/DC, certainly not as brutal as they are. This could also be another, I just thought of this, could be another callback to part 2 as a subversion where obviously Joseph is very different from his grandfather, as Wammu is very different from his adopted fathers in Cars and AC/DC. So this is sort of a reinforcement of that idea in that, you know, even though ancestry is a very important part of this franchise, it sort of subverts it and its importance in a lot of ways, especially once we get to Diamond is Unbreakable. But yeah, this is sort of just like planting the seeds of the idea that a person's family is not always a clear definition of who they'll turn out to be in the future.
Good content. Very good content. You know,
yes, good content.
You know what else would be good content? If Araki would make a really cool Pillar Man spinoff where Wammu is the protagonist. I would read the hell out of that.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. I would definitely read or watch that.
Araki. I'm giving you ideas here.
Tallest man.
These Arakis these ideas. these ideas aren't just to be put out into the universe, you know, just take them. Do something with them, please. King.
So shall we continue the Why Wammu is Great lightning round?
Perhaps we should.
Do you have more to say?
Do I? Oh, wait. Do I? Hold on. I'm checking. I'm looking at all the stuff I wrote down. All right. Actually, I do have something to say about Joseph that I didn't get to say last time. So we'll go into a little mini lightning round about Joseph, perhaps. A very small one. One thing that I felt was especially interesting about our boy in these two episodes is that there's, once again, how I described that there's some things that Wammu has done consistently. There's some things that Joseph has done consistently, which is sort of make bad decisions that have good outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
is the best way I think I could put it. And the best example of that I can think of is probably our boy over here. He always goes for it's so weird because he always, whenever the weapons come down and he has to pick one, he always goes for the most obvious possible one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wammu is always like, oh, well, it's the obvious one, it's not actually going to work. You should take, this one will work out a lot better. Like, especially with the crossbows, he picked one with a lot of power, but very little accuracy. And Wammu's like, I will sacrifice power for more accuracy. He was like, that's not the way to go. But then our boy over here ends up somehow figuring out how to make it work anyways, because of one, the luck coming into it, giving him a little bit of a boost in cocking the crossbow when he fell. And then two, his pure sheer bastardry that just allows him to break the laws of the universe and somehow pull off all of his crazy shenanigans. So it's like that whole, you ever just go into that thought process of the laws of jinx? Like, if I say it'll happen, then it won't happen. But if I say that it won't happen, then it will happen. But if I say that it won't happen, that it will happen, then it won't happen. I go through that thought process at least 3 times a day. And that's what I thought of when I saw this moment happen.
Yeah, it's the weapons just like it's a tiny little bit to add on to what we were talking about before. I think that's another element of them learning from each other, where Wammu is thinking a lot more tactically. He's thinking a lot more, as a trickster in this battle, whereas Joseph is going for more of the direct power approach when it comes to this fight, which is sort of another mirror between the two.
Indeed. Good content. Should we talk about The Thing?
Yeah, sure, we can transition to that.
You know The Thing. We both know about The Thing.
Yes. The thing that we've been building up for the last like month and a bit.
It's once again, as you put it in the recording, which no longer exists, the most "I want to fight Araki" episode of "I Want to Fight Araki."
Yes.
Welcome to the welcome to the segment of the show that is not actual. It is a literary analysis, but it's more
the
like
sexism lightning
it's also
round.
yes, it's also a criticism. It's also us actually wanting to fight Araki. Not actually. Once again, a disclaimer. I don't actually want to throw hands with Araki.
I'm sure he's a perfectly nice guy, you know, but we're
I bet
gonna
he could
lay
beat
into
me
this
up.
scene.
I bet he could beat me up. I can guarantee it.
All right, so let's just get right into it. So
you want me to start with my big points, or do you want to start with your big points?
Why don't you start with your big points?
Okay, I had many big points. So, I have 3 whole points that are quite large. They seem like a small amount, but they're quite dummy thick. So I've heard people. So we have Lisa. All right, now Lisa is a character, as we all know. She
certainly is, Emily.
She really is. And there is a certain thing that happens in this episode, these episodes, where basically Joseph gets to have his good old fight with Wammu, and they duke it out for like an entire episode and a half, and it's glorious. It is one of my favorite fights in the entire show. I love it so much. It's fantastic. Then we got Lisa, who was, an episode previously was like, yes, I will fight you, Cars, and Cars is like, yes, I will fight you, Lisa, and they like duke it out for approximately 2 minutes before Cars pulls a fast one, and she ends up, losing 2 minutes into the fight. Now, this is the thing that I think got both of us peeved.
Yeah, I mean, even the first time watching this episode, so not when I watched it again for the podcast, I was like, wow, they really did that, huh?
I too noticed that. I was like, huh, what? Hold up. It's been 2 minutes. What, why? And there's basically Lisa has never got a chance to show off her coolness, despite being talked up quite a bit. And because she has been talked up so much, like, oh my god, she's like a Hamon master. She's shown in very small moments to be significantly better at it than Joseph and Caesar combined. But she never actually gets a chance to show it off. Now, I've heard people say in an argument that Cars had to cheat in the fight with Lisa because she would have absolutely destroyed him. And this could be a valid point if only other things didn't occur. For example, her not being able to do anything cool at all.
Right.
So,
or rather, if things had occurred, that being we got to see Lisa do cool stuff first.
Yes, that could be valid if she had already had a good time to duke it out and shown that she actually was a worthy fighter. But this never occurred. And blah blah blah. I'm trying. I just completely messed up my notes. I got it though. Hold up.
I guess like the one defense could be that we do see Lisa when they're back in Venice, like do some stuff. But even then, that's not.
It's barely anything.
It's barely anything, and that's not her like at her full power. It's not as if she's trying to kill Joseph and Caesar in that scenario. Whereas, I mean, you would presume that she's trying to kill Cars here. Yeah, I think the main problem is that, and maybe I'm skipping ahead to one of your other rebuttals, but I think the main problem is that, because I think we were both sort of expecting that Lisa would lose this fight because, hey, Joseph's the main character. The main character should fight the villain at the end. I think that's a pretty safe expectation. But I think the problem is that, we don't really get to see as you mentioned, Lisa do anything really cool with her Haman or her, martial arts or anything like that. And especially right before the fight where Joseph is like, um, oh, like you should let me handle this because you're a woman or whatever. I mean, I could sort of like if it was like one or the other, I could sort of maybe give the benefit of the doubt. More so, give the benefit of the doubt with JoJo saying sexist stuff because it's the 1930s. But it just the two together just really make it uncomfortable and sort of bizarre and just gross feeling, I guess.
Yeah. There's a big difference between sexism in the writing and sexism in a character. If a character is sexist, that's fine. That's just who they are. They're a bastard, but like,
Yeah.
it would be expected in, the 1930s. But however, this is in instances when it's when a character is such, which, normally I wouldn't really consider it's just a thing about the character. It's not usually a fault in the writing, but the writing itself can be sexist, and this is an example in which that is the case
Right.
because she is never actually given a chance to do anything. For example, all the other characters can be as like sexist to her as they want, but if she gets to do something cool and sort of be like, hey, I can do cool things too, then that would make the character sexist but the writing not. So that is that.
And you just sort of think,
once again, I also think that I also expected Joseph to be the one to take down Cars, but the ideal would be sort of that Lisa gets a good fight in with Cars. Like, I would no longer consider it sexist if she had like more time to actually do a number on him and actually have a good fight. And then if she gets defeated, that's fine because we expect Joseph to be the one to defeat him anyways, or maybe like the two of them tag team him or something.
Yeah, and especially just sort of, I know the original manga was written quite a number of years ago at this point, but
a hot minute ago.
Yeah, even you consider like stuff like Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood, where that is I would personally argue a male focused story. It's in the title Brotherhood, like all the principal heroes, villains, and most of the supporting cast, with exceptions, are male characters, but yet it doesn't feel like that is being, sexist at all. And, obviously there are great female characters in that series, like Olivier Armstrong and like Winry. You just compare the two, and it's just, you know, so distracting that this is in here and that it is, I mean, even, we talked so much about like how much we love Battle Tendency. It's tied with Golden Wind for me as being my favorite part. But this is just a extremely distracting dark spot on Battle Tendency in general.
It really do be. And back to Full Metal Alchemist.
So we can make the thumbnail relevant again.
Yes, so I can make the thumbnail relevant again because I put Winry in the thumbnail and god damn it, she's going to stay there. So she's in the thumbnail twice, actually. Back to your point about that, it is an interesting thing to bring up because once again, you can totally have a very like male-centric story. That's totally fine. There is nothing wrong with that. And the difference between the two stories, which are both definitely male-centric, is that, once again, you said the female characters and how badly they're written and how little time they're given in JoJo is just distracting. They don't actually feel like characters at all. Well, in Full Metal Alchemist, where there are, it's a male-centric story, but there are female characters that are actually people, despite not being the center of it. And that's where it's like, yes, this feels actually normal. You got characters like Riza, who is fantastic, who is a fighter and does do cool plot things and can shoot guns very cool. And then even then you got Winry, who is not strong, and well, she's pretty, I'd say she's pretty physically strong, but her strength resides more in the fact that she's just a good person, and that is shown throughout it. There was like that whole lovely scene where Ed's like, you're not a fighter, your hands were not meant to kill, they were meant to fix things. So that was a good scene. I love that scene.
Yeah.
And once again, Winry actually feels like a human person who does things, and she has a character arc. And Lisa was sort of built up to have it. That's the thing about her. She was built up to sort of have something there. She had something going for her. She wasn't like a stereotypical woman GM. She was actually kind of interesting in her like smaller moments, but that just never became a thing whatsoever.
And I think especially it just like she feels detached from her own story in a way where we learned from Smokey, who I think Smokey is a perfectly fine character. I don't have any problems with him really, but he's not really present a ton in the story, and we learned from him that Lisa is Joseph's mother. We sort of it does make sense that she would be guarded about certain facts about herself, but just the fact that we are pretty much denied any sort of emotional moment between Lisa and Joseph, or just Lisa in general, I think is that just sort of contributes to her objectification in a way. Like she exists to move along the plot in certain specific areas, but really that's all she is. And like she, as a supporting character, she exists to support characters, but she is not a three-dimensional character in and of herself, which is, just really disappointing.
What a concept. What if we had a scene where it's like, yes, you are my son, and you're like, wait, you're my mom that I never knew? That would be kind of emotional, and I'd kind of like to see that. I'd probably cry.
Definitely. I think there is a lot of potential, or, even like Lisa, it's sort of unhelpful to engage in hypotheticals and like rewrite the story, but like just for shits and giggles, like what if rather than Smokey telling us, the audience, that she is Joseph's mother, like she's been stabbed by cars, she thinks she's gonna die, and like she tells Joseph in that moment that she is his mother. And obviously all the problems we would have had before, where, her as an action character, her as, a strong figure, that sort of undermined. But at least she would feel more like a character, and that, I feel like if it was done in that way, that would really raise the emotional stakes and tension of the scene. Just where it's this huge balance of life and death. But obviously that is not the case as to what happens.
Indeed. You brought up a lovely word, and that lovely word was objectification. Now, I have a thing. I would love to discuss a certain trope that was used here that you probably know all about because you heard me rant about it once before, and I'm going to do it again because it's a trope because I've been watching a lot of anime from the 80s lately just for fun, just for science. And I've discovered a trope that peeves me significantly because I have seen it too many times. It happens way too often, and I'm like, bruh, why you gotta do this all the time. And that I just call it the passing out trope in anime. It's very dumb in my opinion, and it implies several bad things. I've seen many an anime in which a female character, after one not getting a good time to fight, this always happens in like fighting animes. When not getting a good time to fight, a female character will get knocked out, and normally this character will generally get knocked out from something that any of the other characters probably would have been fine, and they probably would have powered through it. And, you know, Lisa did get stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
But I bet I'll tell you, Joseph's a nutcase. If he got stabbed in the back, he'd still be fighting, all right?
I mean, like, think back to, like, even, like, Phantom Blood. Like, Dyer loses his whole fucking body, and he's still kicking around with his head.
Yeah.
Whereas Lisa gets stabbed in the back, and she's done.
And this is... The bad thing about this trope is, one, that it happened... I haven't really seen it in a lot of recent anime, but back in the day, it happened. Like, people used that, like, constantly. And basically, the bad things that it implies is that basically the character passes out and she becomes no longer able to contribute to the fight in any way whatsoever, not even to become like a speedwagon and just narrate everything that's happening. No, she's passed out. She can't say anything. She can't do anything. This is what you call objectification, in which she becomes an object, literally, because she can no longer really think or do anything, as it takes away her actions and her words. And in this case, she is used as an object only as a tool to get Joseph more angry at cars. So that is something that quite peeved me a little bit, and peeved me whenever I see it. This isn't just one show that does it. There's so many that have done it.
Mm-hmm. Even you know, non-anime shows, I feel like.
Oh yeah, I mean, that happens there too.
Maybe not, you know, them being knocked out necessarily, but just, you know, prevented from engaging in the fight in a meaningful way. Yeah. So.
Is that all we have to say about that?
I can't really think of anything else aside from disappointment from this scene.
Disappointment. This has been such a wacky episode, because like before we were like, yes, Wammu is fantastic, we love him, and then we're like sad, disappointed.
It's so weird to have like some of the best scenes like juxtaposed with like one of the worst scenes.
Oh yes, because the Wammu fight is my favorite, definitely my favorite scene in the entirety of Battle Tendency. And I think the whole Lisa scene TM is also my least favorite thing about Battle Tendency. So it's literally my favorite and my least favorite things combined into the span of 2 episodes, which makes it a very wacky 2 episodes. It was a ride, which is why I had many notes.
Yeah. It was, yeah. All right, shall we engage in some silly stuff, get our spirits back up?
Shall I engage in the thing?
Thing. Sorry.
It's all right. It's a forgettable point because we've discussed it before, and it's a very small addition to something we've discussed before. So I'm gonna get back to our boy Cars for a hot sec, because I know I discussed this in previous episodes, and it is about the whole tech versus nature theme TM. I have to add TM at the end of everything just to make it funny. Somehow that makes it funny for some reason. I don't know why. I'm not a comedy major.
No one's going to get that.
Nope.
All right. What's your thing about Cars?
So basically, Cars is just a dick, right?
Yeah.
No, but he's just a straight up asshole.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing really redeeming about him. Although despite the fact that there's nothing redeeming about him, he is generally, he would be considered to be on the nature side of the nature versus technology TM thing. And generally, when you see any sort of media with that, you know, theme present in it, it's normally the side of nature that is good, except in this case, Cars is supposed to represent that in a way, and yet he is very, very selfish and very, very greedy. And that's all he really cares about. He has shown to not care about, the people that he's lived with for 10,000 years and the two that he raised from children. They were actual infants when he, found them. He didn't really care about any of them when they died. So, well, okay. And it's interesting. I just think it's incredibly interesting to see that portrayal. Or I've mentioned before that, and you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I think, where there must be a balance between the two.
Yeah.
Because, once again, in all of these pieces of media, it's always like, yes, nature bad, nature good, technology bad. And what is shown through part 2, I think, through the dynamic between Cars and Joseph, is that neither of them, both of them sort of represent one thing, especially when it comes with like the fact that Stroheim is on Joseph's side and he is literally a cyborg. It shows nature to be the cruel thing, yet also at certain points Cars does have a point. Like, yeah, humans have kind of done bad things, and also Joseph does have a point with, but hey, these things weren't always bad things. There's been, good things to come out of technology, and there's been bad things to come out of technology. And that is, I feel like, a much more, even though it's kind of like a stretch in terms of JoJo, it is it's a more realistic way to look at the situation when it comes to like the climate crisis, TM. It's a very interesting way to put it, because once again, it's like, yes, fossil fuels and whatnot is what screwed up everything. However, technology will also be the thing to save us from it through like solar panels and whatnot. And I just really love how they, how our boy Araki over here, very low key, even if I don't even know if he was trying to do that. It was so like subtle. But if he was trying to do that, I appreciate it, because it's a more realistic take on it. It's
definitely
good content.
It is super fascinating, especially again how like Joseph and Cars embody they both embody balance, where I mean, it's really more of a visual design element, but we talked about Cars' chainsaw, and like that's his element of technology. But even like the bone or whatever it is that connects the blade to his arm, like looks very mechanical in nature. And Joseph, who is, he used the technology, he motorbike, the machine gun, all that. But he also uses Hamon, which is a natural force that, doesn't come from any sort of technology or anything like that. And that there can be both. It's just that, you could maybe argue that like Joseph embodies the balance more, because like he approaches that balance to like everything in his life, like his friends, his family, I mean by the end at least. Whereas Cars, yes, he is balanced physically, but just in terms of his mindset and how he thinks, he's very focused. We talked about how Cars is ambition is like the major way to describe his character, and because of that ambition, he is solely focused on his goals compared to Joseph.
This is why Joseph won. I think it might be silly time.
All right.
Do it be silly time?
It do be silly time.
Less silliness than in previous episodes, but silliness nonetheless. I feel like. Wait, what?
Just go ahead.
I feel like Cars' floof reveal was actually kind of funny.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't describe why it was funny. It just was.
It's just the same. You ever watch Adventure Time, Emily?
Oh wait, I know what scene you're talking about.
Like when Finn like takes off his hat and he's got like luscious yellow hair.
It's funny in the same way as that one scene. It's that one scene from Adventure Time. I love that. It's just silly for very few reasons, but it's just like, heh.
Yeah,
most of the silly things I realize revolve around cars, oddly enough.
Although there are a couple things, I think. So when they're in the gladiator arena, they're like occasionally showing it with like 3D animation, and it just looks really stiff and bad. Like Wammu is just like sitting rock still on his chariot. It looks pretty goofy.
I hate it whenever I see it. It makes me like physically like my face contorts beyond what's humanly possible. It is pure disgust and confusion. Also, Cars be doing the tongue thing though. Like, why he do that?
Yeah.
Stop it right now.
It's really disturbing for
Stop
sure.
it, sir. What are you doing? Why do you feel the need to do this?
I think the other disturbing thing that he does is just plays Lisa's leg like a guitar for some reason.
The single you can't convince me that this is not the most cursed scene in JoJo thus far. It is so cursed. Like you could think of other scenes, but this one is like, it's funny, but it's also like disturbing.
Yeah,
and it is very out of nowhere.
It's pretty much I would say like the most disturbing scene in all of JoJo, to be honest. Just like, and especially what we talked about. But what
about the fingernails and the veins, Thomas? But what about that?
Yeah, that's pretty bad for sure. I mean, at least to me. And I think what sort of cinches the deal is that it is sort of leg, the sound he makes, and the fact that there's all the sexism that comes beforehand just like makes it feel like extra icky. Like when he does it, it's like
in the dub, the noises he makes are even worse than in the sub. I can't explain why, but it's just more cursed because it's like, it seems so out of character yet so in character for him at the same time. I think it's like it seems out of character for the English dub voice actor, but in character for Cars himself, because like the person they got for the English dub sounds very stoic most of the time. And doesn't emote too much, which you would expect from Cars, because he's not, he's not really an emotional person. But then he just like straight up is just like, I'm gonna make guitar noises with my mouth. It just doesn't fit at all.
It's super wacky.
And I also mentioned last time my dream guitar, two of my dream guitars. My first dream guitar, because I like to shred in my spare time, would be a cheese grater shaped guitar that I would dub the shredder. And my other idea, which I actually got from this scene from JoJo, would just be like a guitar shaped like a woman's leg. Nobody would be able to tell what it was referencing, because people could think that it could be referencing the lamp from A Christmas Story, but no, it's not. It's actually a JoJo reference.
Exactly.
I could also just think it's like some Rocky Horror stuff, but no, it's a JoJo reference.
If we ever find a guitar, we're gonna buy it and take it to a Rocky Horror show.
Yes. You have to watch Rocky Horror before we get to part 5, because you need to see the design influences.
I still haven't watched Rocky Horror.
There's no way that a Rocky has not at least been to like a live showing of it before, or have at least not just seen the movie. He's definitely seen the movie. I'm just, Araki, confirm this, please. You have seen this movie.
The last silly thing I wanted to bring up is just all the goofy vampires who are like, and we sort of brought up like earlier, like the logistics of how the vampires get to this location. Because like they say that like AC/DC or Wammu goes to Greece to like recruit, like build an army of vampires. but then he takes them to Switzerland, and like, how did they get from Greece to Switzerland? Like, I'm not a geography expert by any means, but
I do
like,
believe there are mountains there.
but they're like vampires and a pillar man. Like, they can't travel during the day, so like they can't really take a train and
Road
like.
trip. Me and my boys could go on a road trip. Yo, what's up? Me and my boy ACDC, we be going on a road trip. We walking all the way from Greece to Switzerland.
It's probably like it's something I never thought of before, but I just think is kind of funny thinking about it nowadays.
The image in my head of ACDC just rounding up everyone and taking them on a road trip to Switzerland. I feel like they had some wacky times. You know what? When I said we get like a little spin-off about our boy Wammu and the Pillarmen existing, how about a spin-off that's literally just documents every single detail of that road trip?
Goes all planes, trains, and automobiles with Steve Martin.
Oh gosh, that's such a... Oh, now that you're comparing it to that movie, bro, like, just imagining such silly things.
Oh man!
Especially because AC/DC is the most chaotic of the Pillarmen.
Definitely.
And got all these like very crackhead vampire gladiators. I bet they were like I bet they were like mudsliding. Like I don't know why, but I had a flashback to when I had to watch like all of Woodstock, the concert, because they filmed the whole thing, and there was this one part of it where they were all sliding in the mud, and there was this dude, this one legend of a man who decided to go mudsliding. He wasn't wearing a shirt, of course, except he had a beer box on his head that had like an 8-pack in it. And he had the box on his head, and in his arm he was carrying a hollowed out watermelon. And in his pocket was this entire unshucked piece of corn. It was the most chaotic thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Gotta cosplay as that guy.
I want to cosplay as that guy. I bet people would get it because it's just so specific. And I remember it so specifically because of how weird it was. You got the corn, you got the watermelon, and you got the beer case on his head.
Well,
and then the best part is that he trips and falls into the mud. He doesn't slide; he just falls over.
Complete with the Looney Tunes sound effects. Yeah. All right, so I think that's it. Any other last minute silly stuff or serious stuff you want to go over real quick?
I guess not.
All right, so with all that said, if you want to continue seeing the silly stuff, semi-serious stuff, video game stuff, whatever I end up posting, if you want more of that, you can follow me on Twitter at Thomas M. Brickman. I also do another podcast where me and my buddy Kevin talk video game news and what we've been playing lately and all that stuff. We're currently on hiatus right now, but you can catch up on all the archives. There's some definitely good stuff to while away the Corona hours. You can find that show on YouTube. It's called Post Game Content, and you can keep up with all the news and goings on with that when we come back from hiatus. You'll want to check out at Postgame Con. That's at Postgame CON on Twitter. And Emily, where can people find you on the internet?
At Emily Winkles on Twitter, if you would like to follow in detail all of my existential crises.
And if you want to see all the awesome, hilarious JoJo memes that Emily finds and makes, and also keep up with all the news for this podcast, be sure to follow the social media accounts. It's at iwanttofightar1 on Twitter and iwanttofightaraki on Instagram. With all that said, we'll see you guys next time for the finale of our battle tendency discussion with Season 1, Episodes 24, 25, and 26, battle tendency episodes 15, 16, and 17. We'll see you guys next time.